Such an interesting. Joining me now, events chairwoman for the New York Young Republicans Club, Macayle Carey. Macayle, your governor, such an interesting story. Winning an Emmy for his performance during COVID, which apparently he's only playing a governor these days. Perhaps he thinks he's also in Mad Men. I want to play something for you, and then I want you to respond. Here it is.
They have always diminished the charges of women.
I have heard Charlotte and her lawyer, and I understand what they are saying. But they read into comments that I made and draw inferences that I never meant. They ascribe motives I never had. And simply put, they heard things that I just didn't say.
To cheapen or ridicule the pain a woman suffers from a sexual attack.
She identified herself to me as a survivor of sexual assault.
Is disgusting, sexist and disgusting. To second guess how a woman should have acted after a sexual attack.
I do it with everyone, black and white, young and old, straight and LGBTQ, powerful people.
Is sexist and disgusting. I mean, it's just insensitive. You don't understand the pain. You don't understand how the system tortures a person who wants to come forward.
The governor and his senior team took actions to retaliate against at least one former employee for coming forward with her story.
Let's find out the facts. That would be done by people coming to a fair hearing process and relaying the facts.
Governor Cuomo sexually harassed current and former state employees in violation of both federal and state laws. The Independence investigation found that Governor Cuomo sexually harassed multiple women, many of whom were young women, by engaging in unwanted groping, kisses, hugging, and by making inappropriate comments.
There's more news we're following. The embattled New York Governor Andrew Cuomo responds to President Biden, saying,
I'm the Homelander, and I can do whatever the I want.
Obviously, our crew there added a little joke at the end, but to be honest, this is not a funny situation. You and I are both women. I'm sure you've also experienced times when men have tried to push the line with you. And this is a man who says, I've done it with everyone. I do it with men. I do it with women. I do it with folks in the LGBTQ community. That comparison, just so you know, was Kavanaugh, him talking about Kavanaugh to him today, excusing his own behavior. I personally think that this is vile, that somebody could have this extensive dossier done on their behavior and then come out and defend themselves over it. What's your take on this?
Well, as a native New Yorker, what an absolute disgrace to have him representing our city. And back in 2013, he said he had a zero tolerance policy for sexual harassment. And then in 2018, as you mentioned, with Brett Kavanaugh, he said, hashtag, we should believe all survivors. What absolute BS that is. Because there were 11 women that came out against him, whether it was unwanted touching, whether it was comments, it does not matter. He said we should believe all survivors. And New York City is supposed to be one of the greatest cities in the world. So to Governor Cuomo, sexual harassment should never be okay unless it happens with him.
Well, and he's chalking this up to being Italian, saying that this is a culture thing, that he's allowed to go up because of his culture and kiss women on the cheeks. Now, I've never had that happen to me in my career. I've never had anybody in the private sector do this to me. And, you know, I think that people in the private sector understand that there are limitations. Now, I'm not saying it never happens, and I'm not saying that people in the private sector never have a problem with this, but there are people in place to say, hey, this is out of line. You do this, you're not working here anymore. Well, how do we hold these politicians accountable? Because we see the president holding him accountable, but not really. I mean, he's not going to him. Jen Psaki said he's not going to make a phone call and tell him, you got to resign. How do we hold politicians accountable?
You hold them accountable. Nowadays, social media, get the word out there, get the truth out there. That's the very most important thing, that it all be factual information, and have these voices be heard. Have these women, give them a platform, give them the ability to come out and have confidence in themselves to say that. Because, going up against Governor Cuomo, you're going up against the city and all of his cronies. And as he showed in his glorious Emmy Award-winning slideshow, that he has all of these cronies in high places.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, I want to move on. I want to move back to vaccinations. You now have this city where Bill DeBLAHsio, your mayor, now potentially the second worst politician in New York, which we didn't think was possible, but he may have just moved down a notch based on the fact that your governor is a scumbag. But let's move on to the mayor of New York City, because the mayor of New York City is now saying, hey, we have all these wonders in New York. We have theater, we have museums. You want to be able to come and partake in the food and all the wonderful things. And if you don't get vaccinated, those will all be ripped away from you. So what's your response to this shutting everything down to the unvaccinated, this discrimination?
Well, DeBLAHsio, as we like to call him in my neck of the woods, New York City, like you said, is the land of opportunity, where anyone could be anything they wanted. Now, you can only follow those dreams and really have it be the land of opportunity if you're vaccinated. That is direct discrimination. And it's also direct discrimination because, if my statistics are correct, only about 31% of African Americans in New York City are vaccinated. Only about 40%, if I'm correct, Hispanic Americans are vaccinated. So this is targeting minority communities. And actually, in my capacity as the New York Young Republican Club, we are hosting a protest outside of Gracie Mansion on August 15th in response to this. Of course, peaceful protest, but our voices need to be heard. This is a load of crap from DeBLAHsio. He walks around as if he's king of the world. We need to make our voices heard.
So when you talk to other folks in New York City, New York City has been through hell and back this past year, because we saw businesses leave and we've seen iconic restaurants leave. When you talk to your friends in New York City, what's the vibe down there now? Are people feeling like New York is actually back, or is there still a dark cloud over New York and the return?
Well, I have friends that have both vaccinated and unvaccinated, and everyone, mostly that I've spoken to, are just fed up with the lockdowns regardless. These are our businesses, our small businesses closing down. These are our friends and our families losing the opportunities, having to move out of New York because they're no longer able to survive here. Restaurants owners are fed up. Now, DeBLAHsio, he's enforcing these things because he doesn't actually have to be in them. People of New York City, I believe, are standing together, bipartisan issue against this vaccine mandate, because you have the my body, my choice when it comes to a vaccination. You cannot tell me what I need to do in order to go out and get a meal.
What do young people in college today think about the fact that they aren't going to be allowed back in class unless they have this vaccine?
Well, a lot of people I know that really just do not want the vaccination are being forced to get it. People who are so afraid of the medical side effects, not just the stigma about it, but actually looking at the facts, all of the deaths, all of the tragic side effects, the blood clots. the heart issues in males. People are going against their better judgment just to get an education, because we always hear now you cannot do anything without an education. College students are being forced to go against their morals and their values just to fulfill what DeBLAHsio and Governor Cuomo want, which is completely ridiculous.
Thank you so much for coming on today. She is the events chairwoman for the New York Young Republicans Club. Macayle Carey, we appreciate having you.
Thank you so much.